The dimly lit metallic corridors of the Kajezari battlecruiser hummed with an eerie silence, only punctuated by the occasional skittering of mechanical appendages. The assembled soldiers watched with rapt attention as the flickering image on the massive view screen captured their compound eyes. Vexina's gravelly voice echoed through the chamber, her mandibles clicking with each calculated syllable. This footage comes directly from our deepest reconnaissance missions into human territory. What you are about to witness will shatter any preconceived notions you may have about these soft-skinned beings. The grainy image zoomed in on Firebase Echo, a nondescript human outpost on the outer colony world of New Thermopylae. At first glance, the scene appeared almost mundane, a smattering of prefabricated structures surrounded by the rocky, rust-colored terrain. But as the camera panned across the bustling activity, unnatural details began to emerge. A human soldier effortlessly hoisted a massive crate, their biceps rippling with augmented strength. Another seemed to phase in and out of reality, their outline blurring and shimmering like a mirage. A third blurred into a frenetic sprint, covering ground with an unnatural swiftness that made the observer's antenna twitch nervously. Zack Thor leaned forward, his tentacles undulating with disbelief. "Impossible! That can't be! They're just soft things, weak!" Vexina fixed him with a withering glare. "Open your sensory clusters and watch, you ignorant lava slug." The view screen shifted, displaying a new set of humans engaged in what appeared to be combat training. But these were no ordinary warriors. Their forms bristled with integrated weaponry, arms replaced by high-powered particle cannons, eyes glowing with sinister targeting reticules. They moved with a cold, mechanical precision, raining concentrated barrages of firepower upon the training drones with ruthless efficiency. "Behold the peak of human adaptation," Vexna intoned. "They call this the Prometheus Initiative, an entire generation of super soldiers, transcending the frail limitations of their fleshy forms." Cricks and warbles of unease rippled through the gathered soldiers as the implications sank in. These weren't just humans, they were something other, something that seemed to defy the natural order, blurring the lines between biology and technology. The footage continued, showcasing even more bizarre human enhancements, neural uplinks granting lightning-fast reaction times, chameleon-like camouflage that rendered soldiers virtually invisible, and bodies remolded into terrifying forms more akin to living weapons than sentient beings. By the end of the presentation, even the most boisterous soldiers had fallen into a stunned hush, their earlier bravado drained away by the overwhelming evidence. Vexna swept her piercing gaze across the dimly lit chamber. "So you see, my warriors, we face an enemy whose capabilities evolve faster than we can track them. An enemy that sees no boundaries, no limits to what they can become." Her voice took on a grim edge. "If we underestimate them again, it may very well be the last mistake our kind ever makes." As the soldiers filed out in contemplative silence, Zack Thor's tentacles drooped in a rare display of humility. "Commander, why do they keep changing themselves like that? Do they not know what they are?" A bitter trill of laughter escaped Vexina's mandibles. "Oh, they know exactly what they are, Zack Thor. That's what makes them so terrifying." Her compound eyes glinted with something akin to grudging respect. Humans don't just adapt to their environment, they refuse to be bound by it. To them, the universe itself is just another frontier to be conquered, remolded, reshaped by their endlessly evolving will. She turned away, her skeletal frame silhouetted against the endless starfield beyond the viewports. In the pursuit of transcendence, it seems they've left mere mortality behind. And the question remains, what sort of beings will they become next? The hive's vengeance hurtled through the inky blackness of interstellar space, the thrum of its powerful engines resonating through the metallic halls. Vex stood on the command deck, her multifaceted eyes narrowed as she watched the kaleidoscopic display of hyperspace unfold before her. Even now, after countless jumps, there was something unsettling about the warped star lines and distorted colors that accompanied faster-than-light travel. It went against every instinct she possessed as Azari, a being evolved for patience, for the slow and meticulous conquest of worlds over generations. This was too fast, too frenetic. It set her carapace on edge. But there was no going back, not after what she had seen. The humans, formerly dismissed as a primitive species unworthy of concern, had revealed technological marvels and biological augmentations that defied the boundaries of what the Zari had thought possible. Their ability to reshape their flesh with nanotechnology, to directly interface with machines, to manipulate energy fields, it was at once deeply disturbing and grudgingly awe-inspiring. Vex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully as she reviewed the intelligence briefing again. The humans had faced extinction many times, from global wars to environmental cataclysms, and every time they had not just survived but evolved, adapted, grown stronger. In that respect, they were not so different from the Zari themselves. A movement in her peripheral vision caught her attention. Oh! Creek, her loyal second, his feathery antennae twitching with trepidation. "Still no sign we were detected leaving the nebula system," he reported. "Cyber warfare countermeasures at maximum, just in case." Vex gave a slow nod of acknowledgement. "Good. Though I suspect the humans have technologies and methods even our best analysts cannot conceive of yet." Her eyes strayed back to the hypnotic star lines. "We are out of our element, old friend." Creek made a soft clicking sound, a Zari approximation of a humorless chuckle. "That may be something of an understatement, Commander. We are dealing with a species that treats their own biology like a sculptor treats clay, remolding it, augmenting it, enhancing themselves beyond the limits we conceived possible." "Indeed." Vex felt a frisson of something like fear quiver through her carapace. "And that is merely what we can see on the surface. Who knows what other adaptations they have made that we cannot even perceive yet?" They lapsed into silence, each lost in their own worried contemplations about the increasingly incomprehensible foe they now faced. Around them, the organic technology of the Zara shipwrights blended seamlessly with imported human machinery. Oh, a necessity in order to keep pace with their adversaries' relentless technological evolution. It was not just weaponry or defensive measures that had advanced at a shocking rate. Every facet of the human military-industrial complex seemed to be accelerating, fueled by that same indomitable drive to survive, adapt, overcome. From cybernetics and gene therapy to robotics and artificial intelligence, nothing was taboo or off-limits in humanity's monomaniacal pursuit of the future. And now that Vex and her warriors had glimpsed just how far their enemies had already come, there was no going back to complacency, no more dismissing the humans as a curious footnote, an obstacle to be crushed en route to the Zari's longer-term objectives. They were an existential threat, an unknown variable of potentially apocalyptic proportions. Survival would mean more than just winning this conflict. It would mean adapting their entire civilization at an unprecedented rate, rethinking their strategies, shedding philosophies and beliefs that had remained inviolate for thousands of cycles, perhaps even pushing the boundaries of what it meant to be Zari. The thought was almost too much for Vex's warrior psyche to bear. Almost, but not quite. After all, their species had faced extinction before and lived to tell the tale, had they not? This was simply another challenge, albeit on a vaster and more unsettling scale than any they had encountered thus far. As the kaleidoscopic tunnel of hyperspace finally collapsed around them, revealing the hard pinpricks of distant stars in normal space, Vex felt a grim determination settle over her consciousness. If the humans could evolve, remold themselves into something new and incredible in the face of oblivion, then so too could the Zari, and they would start here, in the heart of this unknown and uncharted region of the galaxy. After all, they were still the warriors of the Hive's vengeance. And there were surely stranger, more wondrous evolutions to undergo than even the humans could fathom. Vex gave the command to take them into the new system, her compound eyes glinting with newfound purpose. The game was just beginning, and the Zari would play to win, or die trying. Vex watched intently as the star fields resolved into the shimmering expanse of a new star system on the forward view screen. Creek's feelers twitched as he studied the sensor readings. Preliminary scans show no obvious signs of habitation or technology, he reported crisply. Though there are some resonance patterns in the outer planet's magnetospheres that bear investigating. Vex gave a measured click of acknowledgement. Of course, the humans wouldn't make it that easy. Their forays into new territories would be cloaked, disguised, until they could ascertain potential threats. Another lesson the Zari would be wise to internalize. Deploy the Seeker drones, she ordered. Have them map the system in detail down to the molecular level if needed. I want no surprises. Even as she gave the command, Vex knew it would only be a partial solution at best. The intelligence briefings had made it abundantly clear. The humans had ventured far beyond simple cloaking technologies or electronic countermeasures. They had mastered the art of adaptation itself. Her mind drifted back to the chilling medical footage, the images of human bodies dissolving and reforming, cells and nanotech machines blending in a diabolical union, surgeries that could rewrite genetics and physiology on a cellular level. Regenerative technologies that allowed them to recover from even the most catastrophic injuries. And underneath it all, artificial intelligences and neural implants capable of augmenting their very thought processes, making them smarter, faster, more other. It chilled her to her core. Yet she could not deny the perverse genius of it, the sheer audacity. Most Zari would recoil at such blatant disregard for the sanctity of one's form. To the humans, however, it seemed to be the next logical step in their perpetual cycle of evolution, survival, and transcendence. What would happen, she wondered, if they truly did push such technologies to their theoretical limits? Would there come a point where the humans ceased being recognizable as their base biological selves at all? The thought was equal parts horrifying and intriguing. Was this the shape of things to come for all species, including the Zari? A future where flesh and metal, genetics and synthetics, all blurred into a seamless whole. Vex found herself mesmerized by the possibilities, even as her instincts recoiled at the ethical implications. There was no denying that this path, as disturbing as aspects of it might seem, represented a new frontier of potential growth, strength, and adaptability. A chance to take the next leap as a species, just as the humans were attempting. Perhaps it was indeed their intentions to goad the Zari in this direction from the start, to push them to expand their understanding of technology, to innovate by necessity in order to counter the threat. Was that really so terrible in the grand scheme? Would it not simply be evolution asserting itself once more, each species challenging the other to grow? Vex's thoughts were interrupted by the soft warble of an alert from Creek's station. The Seeker drones had already completed their first analysis sweeps. Her second's mandibles worked slowly as he digested the data streams. Fascinating, he muttered, sifting through a series of holographic projections. It seems there is in fact a presence in this system, but not as we know it. He highlighted a region on the display, magnifying it to show swirling clouds of energized particles and high concentrations of heavy metals like iron and nickel. This resonance pattern, it almost appears to be some kind of massive biological construct. Creek continued, his tone a mix of confusion and begrudging awe. Made up of microscopic nanites acting in concert with an organic framework. He swiveled his optical sensors to fix Vex with an intent stare. I think we may be looking at the beginnings of a Dyson sphere. Vex felt her carapace stiffen at the implications. A Dyson sphere, a megastructure capable of harnessing the complete energy output of a star. Something only an inconceivably advanced civilization could even theoretically construct. Leave it to the humans to be working on such an audacious endeavor. She leaned forward, studying the hologram intently. The sphere, if one could even call it that in its gestational state, seemed to be little more than a diffuse, roiling cloud at present, with intricate lattices of exotic metals slowly taking shape within it. From this distance, it gave the impression of an impossibly vast amoeba, absorbing and rearranging matter on an atomic scale. But the scale, if these readings were accurate, the structure already engulfed over half the inner system, and it appeared to be growing rapidly as gargantuan mechanized mining platforms harvested materials from the system's asteroid belts to feed its growth. "Do you have any idea how long it may have been under construction?" she asked, feeling a sliver of trepidation work its way beneath her carapace. Creek's eyes flickered as he made a series of complex calculations. Based on the rate of expansion and material consumption, his voice took on a stunned tone. No more than 30 or 40 cycles at most, perhaps even less. Vex knew her own reaction must be one of shock. 30 cycles? For a structure of this scale? Impossible. It would take the Zari thousands of cycles to amass the materials for such an undertaking alone, let alone begin actual construction. Yet there it was, the cold, indisputable fact. The humans, in a mere handful of decades, had progressed far enough to attempt the creation of a megastructure unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. And they were doing it through the sheer, dogged application of their nanotechnology and artificially intelligent labor force. She had to admire their ambition, even as it stoked the churning in her cavernous stomach. This was the enemy they now faced laid bare before her. Driven, adaptable, shockingly advanced, and clearly just scratching the surface of their potential. They could no longer be thought of as a simple threat in the conventional sense. The humans represented a singularity, an ontological gambit, the likes of which the galaxy likely hadn't seen since the dawn of life itself. If left unchecked, whatever technological transcendence they were working toward could consume or reshape everything in its path, including the Zari. For a long moment, commander and subordinate simply stared at the representation of humanity's magnum opus, processing its implications. Finally, Vex found her voice. "Belay all other instructions," she said, her tone resolute. "We're going to observe this phenomenon up close, safely cloak the ship and have the drones move in for detailed scans and sample retrieval." Creek gave a jerky nod of acknowledgement, his feelers twitching rapidly. "You realize what we may be looking at here, don't you?" he said, voicing what Vex herself had already suspected. "If the humans can build constructs on this scale, amalgamating biological and mechanical components into a working symbiosis, who is to say they haven't already extended that process to themselves? In other words, they might already be a post-biological civilization without the Zari even realizing it." The thought made Vex's carapace prickle. How could one even begin to formulate strategies and contingencies against such an asymmetric, transfigured foe? She felt her usually steadfast determination flicker momentarily before the iron core of her warrior spirit reasserted itself. There would be time enough for such troubling hypotheticals later. For now, they had to focus on reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. Whatever truths awaited within that maelstrom, the Zari would meet them head-on. "Prepare the containment fields," she ordered briskly. "I want samples from that thing for our xenobiology teams to analyze the moment we retrieve them. If we're going to learn to think like humans to defeat them, we'd better start expanding our knowledge base." As the enormous ship banked towards the anomaly, its outer hull shimmering with projected stealth fields, Vex couldn't shake the feeling that they were bearing witness to something profoundly world-changing. Whether by design or sheer happenstance, the humans had flung down a technological gauntlet that could altogether reshape the trajectory of life itself. The Zari's choice was simple: evolve alongside this near-metaphysical paradigm shift, or be left behind as a quaint evolutionary artifact. With a flex of her carapace muscles, Vex brought the internal armored plates over her sensory nodes into focus. There would be no going back after this system. No comforting pretense of normalcy to return to. The drones angled closer to the megastructure's swirling heart, and the game's latest gambits began to take shape. The observation drones drifted ever closer to the roiling anomaly, their reinforced hulls and stealth fields protecting them from the maelstrom of radiation and exotic particles. Vex watched the visual feed intently, feeling a strange sense of vertigo at the sheer scale of the proto-construct. Vast filaments of some kind of self-organizing smart metal arced and twisted through the energized cloud like strands of metallic DNA, stringing together an impossibly gargantuan framework. Here and there, tiny pinpricks of light revealed the ant-like forms of automated mining platforms, busily harvesting and processing materials to feed the growth. "Magnify that section," Vex indicated, her feelers twitching. One of the drones obediently closed in on a particularly dense nexus of activity, bringing it into tighter resolution. What she saw made her innards clench. It was unmistakably synthetic in origin. Towering spires of obsidian alloy, bristling with sensor arrays and weapons emplacements. Yet at the same time, it seemed to have grown organically from the very heart of the megastructure itself. Here and there, she could make out tubular protrusions pulsing with some kind of circulatory fluid, while bundles of fiber-optic musculature anchored the spires to the roiling metallic sea around them. A fusion of technological and biological elements on a scale she could scarcely comprehend. This wasn't just another human construction project. It was an entirely new paradigm synthesis of life and machinery. "Creak," she said slowly, never taking her eyes off the feed. "Tell me you're seeing what I'm seeing here." Her second's voice held a tone of stunned awe. Some kind of hybrid bastion complex, built directly into the megastructure's developing framework. He trailed off for a moment before continuing, but with an unmistakable bioorganic component as well, as though it literally grew there like a cancer. Cancer, an unsettlingly apt metaphor, Vex thought. This entire undertaking, for all its scale and ambition, struck her as something almost malignant, a runaway mutation of nature and technology that seemed to feed off its own complexity, growing in incremental, unplanned stages. Part of her, the part still steeped in the military discipline and stratagems of old, recoiled at the very concept. Amalgamations like this went against every principle the Zari had been built upon, the preservation of one's form, unsullied by artificial augmentation. To merge synthetic and biological constructs on this level felt violated the natural order somehow. And yet, she could not deny the ingenuity of the approach, nor its sheer audacious scale. The humans had clearly shed such trifling philosophical concerns ages ago in their ever-escalating quest to transcend limits. This bastion, this armored excrescence of biotechnology, represented the next phase. What defenses might such an abomination be capable of? What unimaginable weapons or systems lay within? Could they even find a way to neutralize or destroy something so chimeric? The questions piled atop one another, each more unsettling than the last. Vex felt her perception shudders, the rigid surfaces of her world-view cracking like overt-stressed exoskeleton under the profound implications of what she was witnessing. How did one fight an enemy whose physical form was so protean? One who had moved beyond conventional technological separations into a unified biomechanic paradigm. Maybe they couldn't be fought at all, at least not in any traditional sense of warfare. Perhaps the only path to victory lay in the complete revision of the Zari themselves, accelerating their evolution into a comparable form, one adaptive and progressive enough to meet such asymmetric threats on an equal biomechanical footing. It went against everything she had been birthed and raised to believe. And yet Vex could feel the cold logic of the idea taking root in her mind. In the face of human adaptability and synthesis, the Zari would have no choice but to follow suit or be rendered obsolete. A sudden flurry of alerts across her control panels snapped Vex back to full awareness. Warning symbols blazed crimson. The Bastion complex had detected the drone's presence and initiated an automatic threat response. "They've targeted us with some kind of molecular disruptor arrays," Creek shouted, his feelers whipping in controlled panic. "Shielding at maximum, but we can't avoid full exposure." Indeed, the visual feed showed entire nodes of weapon emplacements unfolding like hellish orchids from the armored biotowers. Energy waves rippled outward in spheres of searing electromagnetic force, tuned with uncanny precision to the frequencies and material properties of their drone's armor. Automated labor and defense systems, working in seamless concert to neutralize any perceived threat to the megastructure's continued growth. The very notion would have been incomprehensible just a few cycles ago. Now it filled Vex with a sense of dreadful purpose. This was the shape of the future, like it or not. Biological and technological systems merged into a unified, self-replicating whole, purposed for whatever ends their progenitors deemed critical. The metallic flesh of a post-biological universe, endlessly adaptive and robust. She issued terse commands to abandon the drones and withdraw the hive's vengeance to a safe distance. The visuals cut out, static replacing the unsettling view of the bristling bastion towers. There would be time for more detailed analysis of the data retrieved later. For now, Vex needed to simply absorb what they had borne witness to and what it meant. Her warriors had glimpsed the future core of human capability, however nascent and embryonic. No amount of strategic models or contingencies would be adequate. To defeat such recursive, symbiogenetic entities would require a deeper shift in perspective, a willingness to challenge the Zari's most fundamental biological, philosophical, and technological assumptions. Perhaps even an openness to explore avenues of transgenic potential they had heretofore dismissed out of hand. The very notion made her carapace prickle with unease. But as the hive ship's powerful drives flared, accelerating them out of the system, Vex knew there was no other choice. Not if they hoped to have any chance of surviving the epoch to come. She leaned back, steeling herself as best she could for the debates and stratospheric decisions that would follow. One thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same. The paradigms were shifting, and unless the Zari shifted in turn, the future would leave them withered on the vine of obsolescence. They would evolve and transcend their current forms, or be swept aside in humanity's wake. Such was the gambit of survival in this strange new cosmos, and the stakes had never been higher.